Oh.
What?
Are you thinking of his real name?
The actor's
Yeah,
name?
I
okay.
can't think of his real name. I can only call him. I can only call him McLovin because that's all he knows.
I thought it was a
That
great
is his
parallel
real
to
name,
and
but
him,
they
him
legally
and
changed it. Because no one calls him by his real name anymore.
Are you
Yeah,
serious? Wow.
Might
News
as well.
to me.
Why not? I mean, at this point,
I loved also, like I said, Nick Cage's what he did with the character is he went wild with it. Like I love him. When he's wild is when he's best.
so he's always the best.
He's always the best. That's
What
clearly
happened to
the thing.
Nemesis?
He was amazing. And he will be cast in that, I guarantee you, as either the Commissioner or Nemesis.
I just can't wait until he plays Superman.
That's going to be with Tim Burton
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the giant spider.
It's,
Yeah.
presumably, it's a version of Superman where he has scissors for hands.
It's such a great character. But back to the point, Kick-Ass I really loved. I thought it was a great movie and very entertaining. Again, all around.
And again, it's kind of like the book and the movie complemented each other too. Like some things that were missing from the book, the movie provided. What the movie was missing, the book kind of provided too. So it was.
It didn't provide me my Nick Cage, the book. I didn't see Nick Cage.
Yeah, well, we don't get the cool Call of Duty / Snake moment, but whatever, you know.
All in all, good movie, I thought. Great.
Quick Crush, the Batcave.
And now for the small screen.
Yeah, we're leaving the big screen and we're moving to television. A series that kind of had like a movie premiere in December called Young Justice. This is based on, loosely based on the series of the same name that was written by Peter David and drawn by
Todd Nowak.
And it's just a marvelous series. It's fun, has a lot of tongue-in-cheek jokes and stuff like that. It's just there's adventure. There's all the teen sidekicks basically are on one team. The series, on the other hand, kind of takes a little darker approach to it, and basically takes those heroes and makes them kind of like a Black Ops team almost that no one's supposed to really know about. And this time around, in the original Young Justice series, it didn't have Archimedes or Aqualad, and instead of Kid Flash, it was actually Impulse. This new series is it's done by some marvelous creators. Greg Weisman.
You will know from the Gargoyles series and also from Spectacular Spider-Man.
What was the theme song?
Spectacular, spectacular, Spider-Man, spectacular. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, so if you watched any of those shows, only the first 2 seasons of Gargoyles, not including the third one, those are the ones he was a part of. Those were just wonderfully written. He's one of the writers on the TV show, and Peter David, the writer of the actual comic book series, is actually one of the writers on here. And this is my theme song for the series. Yeah! It's just, the series is barely started. There's only 2-3 episodes being out now, and it's just well written, a lot of adventure. It kind of looks like it's going to center around. That's my cue. It centers around Superboy because they're the ones that unlock Superboy, kind of like Avengers take freeing Captain America. It's kind of like that for Superboy, and kind of revolves him figuring out what's going on with him and what his place is in the world and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just a great show so far, and just great writers. I don't expect any less from the creative team a part of it.
No.
Ken, do you want to add anything?
No, I think it was hard for me originally to diverge because I had such a mindset we were both very somewhat familiar with the original series that you're okay, it's no longer Tim Drake Robin, it's supposed to be Dick Grayson Robin. It's not Bart Allen, it's Wally West. No, with Wally West and Bart, they had very much similar attitudes and personalities as kids. Very much kind of quick and just kind of impulsive, so to speak.
But Dick Grayson and Tim.
But Dick Grayson and Tim are very different, but you have to also look at the fact of this is the idea of Dick Grayson growing up now as opposed to back then.
Yeah.
He could, if he grew up now, he would be more of a tech head, but back in his original stories, tech was, non-existent, so to speak. So it's you have to kind of look at it in a different light.
Yeah, that's
true. He does still have kind of a brasher sense at times like he does. I'll still you see how he goes into the series and further on, but it's you have to kind of think of it in those aspects where it's Dick didn't have these things to work with. He didn't have that kind of stuff to be automatically grown up with. When they introduced Tim, they already had computers at a very different level. You know, they had personal computers. They had these things.
The
So
Robin of the New Age, kind of.
right.
Yeah.
So it's like it gave him more room to kind of grow with stuff.
Kind of, they created his character revolving around, you know, something specific. And,
Yeah.
this, I mean, DC is kind of incorporating this Young Justice universe as like one of the new Earths, or one of the existing Earths that exist, and the 52 Earths that the DC universe has. So that's why, you know, some of the continuity may throw you off. Well, that's the continuity in this universe. That's why it fits. So they're able to, you know, kind of tie it into the overall headache that DC gives you. So yeah, that's my thing. Have you guys seen the series yet?
No.
I've been watching a little bit of the first episode. I like the cast, the voice casting. It feels proper to the characters. I love the enthusiasm that certain characters have in the show and whatnot. I like the Dick Grayson's voicing and Wally's voicing a lot. As far as an animation standpoint, I think it's very clean, very dynamic, very spirited.
Yeah, it's very bright, and it's like the lines are nice and crisp and clean.
Yeah.
And it's one thing I was originally saying with my original problems with the Avengers stuff that I was watching recently.
Which is completely opposite.
Yeah, it feels like it's a little older, and it feels more like the 90s X-Men and Spider-Man.
And Avengers.
And Avengers. Actually, even that Avengers was brighter than this. It just feels...
Yeah.
And I mean, I have to watch more episodes of the Avengers to give it another chance. But this one, right off the bat, like, the art was just spot on for me, and I enjoyed it all.
What I can
It'll be...
say... Oh,
go ahead.
Finish your thought.
It'll be interesting. Also, like, certain aspects, like the Aquaman and the Aqualad in this, is very different from the Aqualad we've barely seen in the comics. This one's much more like he's almost grown up with this idea of a mythology he's already been born into.
Kind of like a royal
Yeah.
upbringing, too,
He has
because
no-
the way he talks.
the
too,
way-
and it
exactly.
brings- keeps up himself.
And he knows of like these stories and the rich history, whereas in the comics currently,
He has
he's just
no
a kid.
idea.
He's just like, I'm a regular kid and I have powers.
Yeah.
But it's good to give this voice to someone on the team. If you look back at Young Justice, they were just kind of like 3 kids, and then now 6 kids, and they're just kind of running around doing superhero stuff. This, they have more of a well-rounded team.
Right.
Not knocking the Peter David stuff, because that had its own flow, but this
Yeah.
one definitely has a more balanced team there.
One thing I want to say as far as a cartoon standpoint goes, I see, and it's on Cartoon Network, this show, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I've seen lately with cartoons, I've been kind of taken aback by cartoons of this generation. I don't really
Because they're for
appreciate
kids?
Well, no, they
Just kidding.
feel like they're dumbed down. I remember back in
Oh, yeah.
when I was younger, like we had Animaniacs, we had Pinky and the Brain, we had various other stuff, and they were entertaining. And they kind of challenged kids to be a little bit more like, they put adult themes in some of the shows
They put
that
adult themes
you
in-
could appreciate when you're older too, or when you're watching with your kids or the kid itself.
There's that too, but also like things that you didn't even catch as a kid. But they had Wacko. Wacko Yakko. They had
Wacko
Wacko singing the presidents and the country
Countries
songs.
and whatnot.
It had little bits of education there that kind of threw at you. That years later, I'm doing something like Panama said it. Hey, Jamaica Peru, and with stuff like when you see the Fairly Odd Parents, SpongeBob SquarePants, you're like, where's like. This is just 80. This is just imagery.
Yeah.
My point being with this is like when I remember with Cartoon Network, Toonami was also very enjoyable. It was like a young adult, but still like kids could enjoy it.
Yeah.
And this feels like it's going back to that. And I hope Cartoon Network takes a lot of their other shows. I see like Adventure Time is both entertaining and it has some good themes with it. I see Young Justice. I see a little bit of a young adult kind of theme. Hence Young Justice kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And I like that as far as a cartoon standpoint goes. I hope that Cartoon Network gets more shows like this. I hope DC produces more cartoons, and they're taking their DC animated lines very seriously and giving them just the same amount of care that I feel like their major films are taking.
Yeah.
Some of their film adaptations of comics seem to hold that kind of quality. This, from what I've seen, holds that quality very well. I hope it keeps going with that.
Speaking of lines of quality, we definitely have to say quite a good standpoint set by Frank Darabont on The Walking Dead.
Very
along
true.
With Robert Kirkman.
Only one episode though.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, but it's still like
He
he's
produced
still
the series.
producing the
He's
series.
overshadowing
He's still a writer on the show. Like, he's very heavily involved with every episode outside just directing
Yeah.
it first.
Yeah, and it's
So take that back.
exactly. But
Because these backsies.
I mean, it's been such a good representation of what their story originally was, and they've changed certain aspects, like that they've thought that Robert Kirkman has actually mentioned that I don't know what you folks have read out there or what you've seen of the show. The ending the first series of episodes doesn't end the same way as the book, and that's Robert Kirkman actually did an interview. He said, "Why did they do that?" He's like, But when I first wrote the book, it's because I wrote it to the idea that I was going to be canceled at any issue. So I've got to put out all my stories all at once. I got to get out the best of what I have. Here it is now. And then he looked back at it later now. It's like, there's stories that I could have done had I kept certain things around, done other things here, and it's my chance to kind of try that out again. And I think that's a really good idea with the show. There's definitely been some points where it's kind of like the comic set such a high bar, it's hard to pass it, but it's doing such a great job of like at least keeping up with it, I think.
I think it's giving something to complement the comic, as we've said with other works, in that I think having Frank Darabont as the creative spirit behind the show, as well as having it on AMC, which is known for a little bit more adult kind of showcase. And I was expecting this to be on HBO or whatnot, but it's been been able to perform just as well on AMC, on just cable. And I think it's been doing a bang-up job on that. And I think the casting, from the comics, I love Dale. Dale's one of my favorite ones that has been around for the longest part for a good long part of the comic. And I love the casting in the show. I forgot his name, but he's been around with Frank Darabont for quite some time.
I think the other thing too is that we mentioned it before, but it's always that brings me back to this very first issue, is that there's a letter from Robert Kirkman as the introduction saying, the story is about the survivors. It's not about the gore and the blood and guts. If you get scared, that's fine. That's a bonus. But the idea is how these survivors exist and work in this world, and that's what it's about. And that spirit's been kept true in the series too.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were saying about Robert Kirkman looking back at how this show is starting and going a little bit different, I appreciate that as looking at him as a creator, because I see many other creators looking at their works being adapted, and they're like, no, it's not like my comic. It's nothing like my comic. Well, they don't have I feel like they don't have the humility to say, maybe I had flaws in my comic. Maybe I could have done better. Let's see. Let's work collaboratively with this creative team and try to work towards.
I think that can. I definitely say that to his credit, but I also think that I don't want to knock too many people in that. It's like with certain things, like this has been around for a little less than 10 years. Mm-hmm. With some creative stuff like that, they might have had he like he said he put this together as fast as he could just because he wanted to get it done.
That's true.
Whereas with say Alan Moore, he's notorious for saying this isn't my comic anymore. Take my name off of it. He spent how much time on Watchmen originally creating it and just nursing it, putting it together, and how long has it been out in the public view and people have read it for a decade?
But let's look at also not just creators saying that they want it just like the comics. Let's look at viewers. A lot of people are very strict that they want the comic to be just like the movie, or the movie to be just like the comic, or the show to be just like the comic, like we're saying. And I think with this, and a few of the other ones we've mentioned, that doesn't not always necessarily mean the best result.
Yes.
Sometimes it complements the comic.
Yeah. Well, for Walking Dead, to translate, this book into the show, there's only one thing they need to capture, and it's like what Ken said, the pure essence of it, the humanity, that's what really they need to translate. If they didn't translate that, then it wouldn't be worth watching.
Yeah.
And they've captured that perfectly, and that's what keeps people, the same feeling you get just reading issue by issue of Walking Dead is the same feeling you get watching episode by episode, because you have the same emotions, the same feeling. You feel what they feel. You feel in the comic book and in the show. That was the most important thing. They could have changed everything as long as they captured that. They kept you feeling for the characters, kept you just on an emotional roller coaster with them along the way. As long as they captured that. That's the translation. That's the perfect translation right there.
The emotion it evokes.
Exactly.
Not so much it skipped this panel in the.
There's certain things that you want like that from translating from a book into a movie.